All right, hello and welcome back, book besties. My name is Lauren, if I'm a new face to you here on the internet, and today I thought I would just share my May reading wrap up. So that is going to include all of the books I read in May, my ratings, what I thought of them, if you should read them, as well as a little bit of data because I think it's interesting and I like graphs, so I'm very sorry. Let's just go ahead and get straight into it. Let's go first to my stats for May. So I read a total of 10 books in May, which is the lowest month of the year so far for me in total books read. And out of these 10 books, 2 were audiobooks, 2 were physical copies, hardbacks, and 6 were ebooks. And one of those ebooks came from my library. In the terms of pages, I read around the total of 2,900. Actually, just a little north of that, but 2,900 pages, not including audiobooks, obviously. So all the pages I read in May, up to this point, I've read about 15,000 pages this year so far, and all the pages in May made up about 19% of pages I've read so far this year. So interesting. April is still the top month for me. So as for genres, it was a normal mix for me, nothing crazy, nothing out of the ordinary. So I read a total of 4 contemporary romance books, 3 thrillers, and then 1 of each of these genres, which were historical fiction, fantasy, and romantasy. And I will have some beautiful graphs up for you guys to look at just to see this data. I like tracking it and keeping account that way. Okay, now let's just get into the books I read in May and my thoughts on them and if you should read them as well. The first book I read in May was Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I rated this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. I also want to say thank you to my public library because I was able to get a copy of this book via the Libby app. And while this book wasn't necessarily my cup of tea, it was still really enjoyable because in Same Time Next Summer, we follow Sam as she prepares for her wedding a few short months away. And to do that, she goes back to her family's beach house somewhere in Long Island and is working with her mother to get their invitations sent out, finalize the location, which I don't know how that hasn't been done before now, and she's there with her fiance. She hasn't been back to this beach house for a long time. She hasn't spent more than a day or 2 there when she has been back, but it's also the site of a lot of devastating stuff to her family, and it's also where she met her first love, Wyatt, and he's her next door neighbor there. So they used to spend all summer together of their childhoods. When she reunites with Wyatt, all of these memories and unresolved feelings for Wyatt come along with him when they are reunited, which end up challenging her current decisions that she's made about her life. Overall, my thoughts are this was a fine book. It was fine. There was some character growth, but overall, it felt very rushed. It took place over a very short amount of time. And honestly, I had been hearing so much about this book, it just did not live up to the hype for me for what I was hoping it would be. The second book I read in May was The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon, and I listened to this one on audiobook via Audible. The audiobook was really well done and it kept me hooked the entire time, but more on that in a minute. I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars, which is a pretty decent rating for me, honestly. I really did enjoy this book. This historical mystery is set in Maine in 1789, where we follow Martha Ballard, who is a midwife, and she is called to examine the body of a man who is found entombed in the Kennebec River, hence the book name. As she investigates, she discovers that the deceased man is actually accused of raping her close friend and local preacher's wife a few months earlier, and she suspects that there is a link between that crime and his murder, and she documents all of this in her diary. Overall, I loved this book. I don't know what I was expecting going into it, but it just really blew me away. It was very unique. I actually enjoyed it so much. My mom and I, we are going on vacation in about a month together, and I bought a copy for her to read on vacation. I think she would really like this book. It was overall just a really good vibe. Also, in the author's note at the end, I didn't know this going into the book, but at the end you learn that Martha Ballard was a real midwife in the late 1700s. Lawhone really did her research and tried to do Martha Ballard as much justice as she could, which, good book. Book number 3 of May was The Liar's Bones by Morag Pringle, and I want to say thank you to Storm Publishing and Morag Pringle for allowing me to be an early reader of this book. The Liar's Bones was published on May 20th, 2024. And I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. This crime thriller is set in the Scottish Highlands where Rachel, who is our main character and also a lawyer, investigates a suspicious drowning of a local woman, Ellen. Rachel goes deeper into this case, and as she does so, she starts to uncover a web of secrets and tensions within the local community. And she does all of this while a big, massive storm is approaching, and she's being haunted by her own troubled past. So this book was entirely gripping and atmospheric. I really enjoyed it, and once I got really into it, probably around the 20% mark, I had trouble putting it down. I really wanted to solve it. There were so many little pieces. There were so many characters. I didn't get any of them confused, which is a good sign. That's good, because they all stood out and they all had their own characteristics throughout the story. And also, if I remember correctly, this is the first book of the Rachel Mackenzie mystery series that's starting. So I highly recommend this one if you are looking for a creepy small town mystery thriller that you are gonna try to solve yourself, because it's there. The 4th book that I read in May was Attached at the Hip by Christine Riccio. And I wanna say thank you to St. Martin's Press and Christine Riccio for allowing me to be an early reader. Attached at the Hip was published on May 21st, 2024. Also, I did an entire review video of this book, so that means I'm not going to really be talking about it a lot here, and I'm just going to briefly go over it for you. I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. In Attached at the Hip, we follow our protagonist, Ori, who has recently graduated college, where she has now impulsively joined a reality TV show where she must navigate romantic and strategic relationships and challenges on a deserted island in, I think, Fiji. Ori is unexpectedly reunited with her high school crush Remy on this island, where they are literally joined at the hip by some rope, and that's part of the gimmick. Ori faces a series of daunting challenges, all set on the background of a tropical game of human chess. This book was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. If you like reality TV shows or challenge shows like Survivor, you're gonna love this book. It was really fun. It was steamy, not spicy. It was clean. There was just kissing. And also the character growth throughout it was really well done, and I love Riccio's writing. So if you are wanting more, I will insert a card somewhere for you to go check out my review video where I go more in depth on Attached at the Hip. The 5th book of May was One of Us Knows by Alyssa Cole, and I listened to this one via Spotify. And I rated this one 3 out of 5 stars. Wasn't really my cup of tea, honestly, and I don't think I even knew what to expect getting into it. In One of Us Knows, Kenetria Nash is our protagonist, and she is also a historical preservationist with dissociative identity disorder. She becomes the caretaker of the historical estate on an isolated Hudson River island. A nor'easter traps her on the island with several strangers, including a man from her past who is soon found to be deceased. So Ken must team up with her alters to uncover the truth and clear her name amid growing suspicions. While this book was really interesting and I did enjoy it, I just don't think it was for me, and maybe that's my fault for not reading the synopsis fully through, or maybe it was reading it in audiobook format. But ultimately, I don't think I will read this one again, but it is worth reading. And somewhat, it's marketed as a thriller, but I think the thriller aspect of this book just wasn't there for me, or I was expecting something a little different from it. It was a fine book, but it just let me down. But you should still try it out if it sounds good to you. Book number 6 I have right here with me, and it is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. I'm gonna put this down, have editing me take over. I got this one from Book of the Month Club for like way back in March, and I was finally just able to pick it up. But beautiful, loved it. Man, I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars and really did enjoy it. And I counted it more as a fantasy rather than a romantasy because it was a slow burn. So it was more fantasy. Maybe the second book in the series will be more romantasy. I don't know. But in A Fate Inked in Blood, we follow Freya, who is a shield maiden, which means she is blessed by the gods with a power. It's based all on Norse mythology. And Freya is battling to unite her nation under the rule of a power-hungry Jarl, essentially king, while also grappling for her growing desire for his son Bjorn. But the catch is that power-hungry want to be king is now her husband. Wink, wink. You know, like in name only, nothing else. So this is an action-packed book, and it is filled with magic, prophecies, and the forbidden romance between Freya and Bjorn, which adds a lot of tension and intrigue. After hearing a lot of stuff from other booktubers on this where they said it kind of let them down or they weren't really sure what to expect and were still let down, this book completely blew me out of the water, and it was such a good book, and I'm so glad I read it and I didn't keep putting it off because I was nervous after hearing what other booktubers had to say about it. Everything about this one was wonderful, and the slow burn romance was just, it was burning and it was so good, and the tension was there between Bjorn and Freya, and yeah, this was a good one. I really did enjoy A Fate Inked in Blood. It was probably one of the highlights of my month. The 7th book I read in May was Swiped by L.M. Chilton, and I want to say thank you to Gallery Books and Chilton for allowing me to be an early reader. Swiped was published on May 21st, 2024, and I rated this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is a darkly humorous thriller where the protagonist, Gwen, is dealing with the aftermath of a messy breakup and some very severe career changes in her life. So what does Gwen do? She turns to a dating app to kind of fill a hole in her life. But her life takes a terrifying turn when a string of victims turn up to be murdered, and they all have a connection back to her dating life and to this dating app. And this makes her the prime suspect, but also forces her to track down her past dates of like the last 3 weeks, by the way, all in the attempt to unmask the killer before her best friend's wedding. I really loved this book. It was dark, but at points it was humorous. And I really wanted to solve the mystery, like so bad. And by the end of it, I was completely shocked at the whole reveal moment. It was honestly a really fun book to read, and it would be a perfect book to read at the pool. If you enjoyed Murder Mystery 1 and 2 on Netflix, this is kind of a very similar vibe. Not like, you know, Agatha Christie, Murder on the Orient Express, but just the humor that goes along with the thriller aspect. Also, Gwen is a really complex character, and she's never like purely good or purely bad. She's like that perfect mix of gray. that is really relatable to real life. So the book was easy to read, and overall, it was a great book to read. The 8th book I read in May was Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole, and I do have this one in paperback, but I mainly read it on my Kindle, which is why I counted it as a Kindle book. Also, I just did a buddy read with one of my friends, and we just did a podcast episode talking about this book. And I think that's actually going to go live like a day or two before or after this video is posted. So go ahead, read this book, and then go watch that video and join us for a little book chat about it. But I will briefly go over it. This was my 3rd 5-star book of the year. It was really good. It was outstanding. Yeah. So in Spark of the Everflame, we follow Dean Bellator, who is a healer and is following in her mother's footsteps. And she is a mortal in a poor village where the Descended are essentially like fae. And she's thrust into this dark world of the Descended after her mother mysteriously vanishes one day. She starts to uncover secrets about her past and has to navigate a dangerous game that includes love, power, and politics, and also must choose a side when there's a civil war brewing in her country, state, something like that. It's the equivalent. So this is a really great romantasy book. It had everything that you wanted in it, and kind of a romantasy book. She's not brought into the court and, you know, made to dress up and not feel like herself. But she's also like 23 or something like that, 21. It's the perfect new adult romantasy book out there. Also, it's a slow burn romance with the king's heir, apparent, I guess, whatever you call him. And I just have such strong feelings about all of these characters. Also, fair warning before you start reading this book, it was very addicting to read because every chapter ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger. And you just want to be like, oh, the next chapter says it's only going to take like 5 minutes for me to read. I'm just going to read it real quick. It's one of those books where you just do not want to put it down. And Spark of the Everflame is available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have that, if you're a member of that, go ahead and pick up this book. It's only like 400 and something pages, but there's a total of 4 books in this series, with the 4th one coming out in July of this year. The 9th book I read in May was The Paradise Problem by RCLOREN. And I actually just did a reading vlog of this one where it was like a how I annotate my books, and it was just easier to make it into a reading vlog. So I did tab all over it, and that reading vlog will most likely be up mid-June. I don't really know when, but it'll be up. So essentially just keep an eye out for that one if you're interested. Also, I got this one via Book of the Month for a May pick, and I gotta say, this is not an ad. I'm not sponsored by Book of the Month, but I love the fact that like every month I get to choose a book, and I think almost all of them are new releases for that month. And so this was a new release for May, and I was able to choose it and not have to go to Barnes & Noble or something, and I got a beautiful book that I loved. Very simple, very easy. If you don't do that one, I would consider thinking about becoming a member of Book of the Month Club. And I rated The Paradise Problem 4.5 out of 5 stars. So Anna and Liam used to be married in college, but their marriage was a little bit of a sham just to secure affordable housing for both of them, as Anna was an undergrad art student and Liam was a graduate student. But now they have to kind of keep up the ruse for his family so that he can get his inheritance. Anna is a free-spirited artist, and West, Liam, is the buttoned-up heir to a grocery chain, and they need to keep the sham of a marriage up so that he can claim his inheritance. In this very humorous, very lighthearted, but also very deep and cuts to the core book, the two explore their feelings for each other, about themselves. They each learn something, and it's all set on this beautiful island in the Pacific. So they are going to navigate family pressures and start to explore what a relationship between the two could actually look like. And honestly, I can't wait for you to see the vlog because I haven't really read a contemporary romance like this in a long time. It was such a good book to read, and I really want you to go through like the roller coaster that it was with me, because by the end I was crying. And it's like, okay, every now and then I'll probably only have like 2 or 3 books this year that make me cry by the end, and it was a good book. It was really good because like the character growth throughout all of it was just wow. Also their love for each other and like that last page, just oh my god. Oh my god. The final book that I read in May was Nearly Wed by Nicholas D. Damazio. And I want to say thank you to Sourcebooks Casablanca for allowing me to be an early reader. Nearly Wed was published on May 21st, 2024. And I rated this one 3 out of 5 stars. So in this book, we are following Ray Bruno, who is this chaotic millennial writer, his very pragmatic Gen X fiance, Kip Hayes, who is also a doctor, and they have their compatibility put to the test at the Early Moon Resort in Ray's hometown of Seabrook. What starts out as a relaxing getaway for the soon-to-be weds quickly turns into a series of missteps, mishaps, and misunderstandings. And this forces the couple to confront their differences and question if they are truly ready for marriage. This was a good book, and it was deeply moving and really thought-provoking on questions surrounding marriage, love, and a wedding. You know, what is the difference between all of those? Why do they all look so different? And what is our version of each? It also looked at social media and how society kind of is interpreting social media and how we can kind of reclaim that in a way. Overall, it was a really good book, but I just don't foresee myself picking it up again. All right, so May was a pretty good reading month for me. I read 10 books overall. And if you have read any of these or if they're on your TBR, go ahead and comment below and let me know, because I would love to hear your thoughts on them. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Lauren Page Reads, where I post a variety of book content, and you can also get some more book reviews there and recommendations. If you enjoyed this reading wrap up for May, consider giving this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel where I publish a new video every Friday. And thank you all for watching, Book Besties, and I will see you all again on Friday. Bye.